Ready. Play.
I do want to start before we actually get into the tennis on the court. Some tennis that will be taking place in a court of a different kind is, of course, the latest development regarding Jannik Sinner, where WADA have now finally got involved and decided to take issue with the conclusion that the ITIA came to, which let me think about this, is the am I saying it right? ITIA, is that right?
Yeah, International Tennis
Integrity Agency Association.
I don't know, maybe I thought it's association.
I find their title a little peculiar because I think what many of us would like to come to on this topic is a fairly black and white conclusion. And I know that many people say, well, things are never black and white. Well, when it comes to doping, the idea and the notion is that we should be able to come at least as close as reasonably possible to a black and white conclusion. Well, the conclusion that WADA have come to is obviously very different to the one that the ITA have come to. I saw you tweet about this, Vanch, and am I right in thinking that you think that the ITA maybe don't come out of this too well, looking too great at the moment, or have I misinterpreted your tweet there?
Well, I think it depends on what happens with the appeal. Like if WADA wins, then the ITIA's credibility could be under threat, because obviously the main point is the no fault or no negligence, which WADA came to the conclusion that Sinner does have to take the blame for that, even though his team members, obviously had the spray and everything, and even if he directly didn't know about it, like he's still responsible for that aspect of it, because the fault bears on the player, regardless of even a small amount of the substance in his system, like whatever it is, its responsibility falls on the player. So, but from this, it's kind of interesting because, like a 1 to 2 year ban, if Jannik's story is true, which is very possible that it is, a 1 to 2 year ban is obviously very harsh compared to, not getting, like, compared to the 3 or 4 or 5 days of provisional suspensions that he got in April. So it's two very different approaches to basically the same, or two very different decisions to basically the same material that they both had access to. So that's kind of the part where it's like the ITIA has a totally different conclusion from WADA, and it's like now we're just waiting for the appeal, which could take many weeks.
Yeah, weeks or months. I think Sharapova's case has been highlighted as one suggesting that it might be a few months, which, by the way, for some people might be quite quick. For others, maybe it can't come soon enough. Damien, the case of Marco Bartolotti has been mentioned a few times. Is it because basically the two cases are very much the same, and yet Sinner now is in hotter water than Bartolotti was? Is that the case?
Bortolotti, yeah. I mean, yeah, it's close to ball. We don't actually know what the exact explanation was because it's redacted in all the official files, so I have no idea. But yeah, I mean, this case is actually one of the main reasons why, well, Sinner wasn't necessarily preferential treatment, because Bortolotti also wasn't banned. He just literally, the case was going on while he kept playing, and he only had his results disqualified from that one challenger, which I think was in Lisbon. Anyway, European on clay, that doesn't really matter. But yeah, after a few months, we learned about it, and it basically ended as the same as the Sinner case. But yeah, then again, as Vanch says, like 1 or 2 years of a ban, but we have a lot of examples of players who got that. So how are they supposed to feel, right? I mean, I think they just kind of want an answer in terms of like, why did I get that ban, whereas Sinner was allowed to play while this was still going on? And I know that the Sinner camp has said that, they basically were ready with the explanation right away. For some people, even that is a little alarming. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be a really tough one because we thought that this was done. Jannik thought that this was done. Like, he was so sure, right? He gave all these interviews where he said that this is finally behind me. I can put it past me. Turns out he's not. I don't know if it will come to anything. One thing more that I have to say, though, it's very horrifying to me how, even though the WADA report or whatever it is, the WADA announcement was maybe 3 paragraphs, There are so many people talking about it on the internet who clearly didn't even read that. Like they just ask questions which are basically answered there, or like so many are suggesting that WADA will now be questioning the Sinner explanation, which they won't. They accept the explanation. They just don't think that it classifies under, no fault or negligence. Recently, we've had a lot of players who got that no fault or negligence thing, by the way, like, I don't know, Andrei Martin, Kamil Makshak, and they still were banned for about a year. So, I would like to know. And yeah, exactly. This is the statement. So, like, if you haven't read that, then what are you even doing talking about the whole thing? But anyway, what I'm going to say is that I am not sure why the Sinner and Bortolotti cases are different from, for example, Makshak, Martin, etc. I'd like to know. That's kind of all I have to say. Yeah.
Cool. I'm going to read
And
out
this is an interesting one from Brazy as well. Could this
go on.
scandal mentally affect Jannik in the upcoming matches and tournaments? Yeah, probably, right? I mean, I still don't know like what his motivation will be even this week in terms of, he doesn't really have many goals right now for the rest of the season, basically until the ATP finals. So this compared with that, yeah, I think it could affect him. He might have some, an unexpected loss somewhere soon.
There's been a few unexpected losses of sets, including at the beginning of the US Open, and I think he was down a set and a break in his first round match there, and maybe 1 or 2 losses of sets here. But we'll see as he has obviously more testier matches to come. I'm just going to read out this statement because it is pretty short on the WADA website for those listening on our podcast, by the way. So the World Anti-Doping Agency, more familiar to many as WADA, confirms that on the Thursday, the 26th of September, it lodged an appeal to the Court of Arbitration for Sport, also known as CAS, in the case of the Italian player Jannik Sinner, who was found by an independent tribunal of the aforementioned ITIA to bear no fault or negligence, having twice tested positive for clostebol, a prohibited substance, in March 2024. It is WADA's view that the finding of no fault or negligence was not correct under the applicable rules. That's obviously what the ITA conclusion was. WADA is seeking a period of ineligibility of between 1 and 2 years. WADA is not seeking a disqualification of any results from the last 6 months, save for that which have already been imposed by the tribunal for the first instance. That's obviously the ones at Indian Wells, where those results, I think his financial reward from Indian Wells, but also the points he earned there, were all removed at the conclusion of the ITA last month, I think it was. As this matter is now pending before CAS, WADA will make no further comment at this time. There is a question which I have posed a couple of times, which I don't know the answer to, and maybe neither of you two do either, which is, when did WADA become aware of this? Did they become aware of it in March during the Indian Wells, and therefore they have waited for the ITA? Did they also, were they approving of the initial let Jannik continue to play? Or did they just find out, like many of us did, like last month? Do either of you know the answer to that question? No. Okay, that's fine. No, it is a question that I would like to know the answer to, because if they didn't know, and they probably did, I'm not saying they didn't, but if they didn't know until last month, well, that's a cover-up, right? If they didn't know until last month, it has been kept from them. But as I say, that's a question that maybe.
But do we even know the procedures, like in general? Like,
surely the WADA have to know about failed doping tests, right?
I don't know.
Well,
I mean, how important is the WADA? I really have no idea how the procedures work there.
I think that's sort of the kind of, I mean, they're more important than the International Tennis Integrity Agency, I think. They have a...
Well, I mean, they're more important like the Olympics or something, but are they more important than tennis?
Well,
maybe it's common for the ITIA to kind of handle things on their own, and then again, like, that's something we just have no idea about.
By the way, why did we find out in the end anyway? Why did it emerge in August in the end, as opposed to obviously when it happened? Vanch, maybe?
I'm not sure. I mean, I think, I think it just got, like, they came up, that's the question that everybody has, like, why was this not known to us in April when he failed those tests? And then why did it then take till August for the statement to come? Like basically after he won Cincinnati, I think the day after.
Mm-hmm. All right. I don't know if either of you got anything to add, or shall we move on?
Not really. Yeah, there's just a lot we don't know. And basically, as usual with these cases, we're just sitting here and we have to wait for the procedures to follow and kind of, yeah, for the verdicts to come. Like, there's just nothing we can really do to impact the situation.
Sure.
Well, unlike PUBG suggests.
I did see something on this. I saw a tweet from what's his name, Scott Barkley, and he's like, one of the things about this that's kind of annoying is that given the goalpost moving, he sort of suggested the goalposts are moving in the direction of PUBG. Well, I don't necessarily think they are. I still think you can put some of his tweets in isolation and still treat them as insane, whatever happens in the rest of this Jannik Sinner case. And as I say, it sort of falls into my case by case scenario. And one of the things that PUBG I think does is he actually damages those notions that maybe there is an establishment, because I think there are issues in the way that governance occurs both within sport and elsewhere. I think that they should be questioned, and we should hone in on them, and we should put them under scrutiny. And maybe there's other people that are sort of semi-agreeing with this notion and think, okay, yeah, there is something a bit, but then PUBG goes off on his weird and crazy rants that are based on nothing more than the fact he's a fan of Novak Djokovic. And then it's those people are probably going, oh, actually, because this nut job is questioning the authorities, maybe we should just back them. So unfortunately, he actually damages the exact thing that he suggests that he's hoping to raise. That is all I have to say on PUBG, and I think we can move on, shall we?
Yes, absolutely. Let's not spend any more time on this. Yeah.
Yeah. Fair enough. And fingers crossed, I'll actually get someone on who maybe can answer some of the questions that we still don't know the answer to. But we'll see if I can attract that kind of person. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell so you don't miss out on all things tennis.